Welcome everyone to my YouTube channel. In this video, I will give you a general introduction to the 4 types of introverts. When you think of an introvert, a quiet or timid person might come to mind. But what if we told you that introverts come in all shapes and sizes? Of course, introversion is defined by quietness, self-reliance, and reservedness, but not every introverted person fits this archetype. 4 types of introverts. In fact, some researchers suggest that there are 4 main types of introverts: social introverts, thinking introverts, anxious introverts, and inhibited introverts. Point 1. According to psychologists at Wellesley College, all introverts have these traits to varying degrees. A person's dominant tendencies determine which type of introvert they are. Introverts are commonly misconstrued as shy or anxious. Some may exhibit these traits, but being introverted doesn't necessarily mean being bashful or be synonymous with timidity or fear. Rather, introverts just need time to recharge after social events. It's important to avoid pigeonholing introverts. They're not a monolith. Yes, there are 4 types, but each has its own unique characteristics and social preferences. Below, we take a closer at the 4 types of introverts, what makes each type unique, and the differences between them all. Social introverts. Social introverts sound like an oxymoron, but it's a real thing. They're introverts who prefer spending time alone, but they're not against large social gatherings. They simply like spending time with close loved ones or in smaller social settings. Being in large groups can be draining and will require lots of recharge. People who are social introverts tend to communicate in a subtle, collected, and direct style, says holistic therapist Jenny Flora Wells, MSW, LSW, ACSW. These individuals are not aggressive in responding right away, but instead, they take their time to cultivate a thoughtful response. Some signs that you might be a social introvert include preferring to spend time with small groups of people, needing time alone to regain your energy, especially after socializing, being selective about who you socialize with and when you spend time around others, preferring meaningful, substantive conversation over small talk, needing to have control over your social schedule and interactions, disliking spontaneous or unplanned social events, preferring to meet new people in familiar settings. Small, close-knit gatherings are the name of the game for social introverts. This way, they can have deep conversations. They'd much rather spend time with a trusted friend than attend a crowded party or meet new people. Because they are so thoughtful and reflective, they tend to be attentive and empathic listeners. This thoughtful approach allows them to manage their energy and ensures that they can engage in a manner that feels authentic and comfortable to them, explains clinical psychologist Dr. Lilith Arapetian, PsyD. Because social introverts enjoy solitude and are careful about how and when they socialize, they sometimes acquire an unfair and inaccurate reputation for being shy, antisocial, aloof, or insecure. Many social introverts are intellectual and existential thinkers and prefer to engage in deep connection with others versus surface-level conversation. The reality is that social introverts often enjoy socializing, particularly with people they're closest to. They tend to be warm, engaging, and confident as long as they are in their comfort zone. Anxious introverts. Anxious introverts tend to feel uneasy and self-conscious in social situations, where social introverts prefer small gatherings. Anxious introverts avoid social interactions because they fear making mistakes, being embarrassed, or being judged. Introverts who tend to have higher levels of neuroticism are more prone to experiencing anxiety. You might be an anxious introvert if you tend to feel nervous being around other people, ruminate about past social interactions, worry about upcoming social events, feel highly self-conscious, have a hard time starting conversations or making small talk. Tend to be extremely sensitive to social cues and reactions. Overthink conversations and social scenarios. Anxious introverts tend to feel self-conscious about social interactions. They often try to avoid these situations and may seem nervous or even fearful when they do have to socialize. To manage this anxiety, they often stick with familiar, structured situations and seek out time alone so they can recharge and de-stress. These types of introverts may be more prone to experiencing social anxiety. Research suggests that about 1/3 of people with social anxiety have an anxious introverted personality type. Tips for anxious introverts. Anxious introverts can benefit from preparing for social interactions ahead of time, Dr. Arapetian says. This might involve rehearsing conversations, planning topics to discuss, or setting personal boundaries on the duration of their stay at a social event. She also recommends starting with shorter social interactions and taking opportunities to step away to recharge. Try using the following coping strategies, Dr. Arapetinans recommends them for helping anxious introverts better navigate social situations. Focus on listening. Shifting the focus from speaking to listening can alleviate some of the pressure in social settings, she explains. By concentrating on what others are saying, anxious introverts can engage meaningfully without the stress of being the center of attention. Practice relaxation techniques. Using relaxation techniques like deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, or mindfulness meditation to help alleviate feelings of social anxiety. Set realistic expectations. Arapetin also recommends setting realistic expectations about social interactions to avoid feeling anxious. Understanding that it's okay to leave an event early or to not engage in every conversation can reduce pressure and help manage anxiety, she says. Recharge. Scheduling some alone time after a social event can help replenish your energy. Thinking introverts. Thinking introverts tend to be introspective and creative. These types of introverts are highly imaginative and spend a lot of time daydreaming or lost in their own thoughts. Thinking introverts are commonly seen as dreamers and having a vibrant imagination, Wells explains. Thinking introverts are analytical individuals who exude critical thinking abilities, creativity, and empathy for others. This type of introversion may be connected to differences in the brain. Research suggests that introverts and extroverts have differences in their brain structure. One older study found that introverts have thicker gray matter in the prefrontal cortex, the region of the brain connected to decision-making and abstract thought. Some unique strengths you may have as a thinking introvert include a love for deep, thoughtful analysis, being highly analytical and logical, a talent for thinking independently, the ability to solve problems on your own, placing a high value on autonomy, trusting your own judgment, paying attention to details, spotting things that others miss. Thinking introverts are highly logical when making decisions. They consider multiple perspectives and weigh each option's potential pros and cons. However, this thoughtfulness can also be a double-edged sword at times. They struggle with decision-making and are chronic overthinkers, which can bring up hesitancy and anxiety, says Wells. In social settings, thinking introverts prefer one-on-one conversations that allow them to discuss topics in greater depth. They might seem a bit reserved at first, but typically begin to open up as they get to know people better, especially if the conversation is authentic, interesting, and intellectually stimulating. Restrained introverts. Restrained introverts, also known as inhibited introverts, tend to have higher levels of behavioral inhibition. They are more alert to potential threats and reserved around others. In other words, they are slow to warm up to new people and tend to hold themselves back in social situations. They usually wait until they feel more comfortable before engaging with others. You might be a restrained introvert if you tend to have these traits. Very cautious when making decisions. Think before you speak or act. Slow to warm up in social situations. Prefer having a routine and a predictable schedule. Avoid spontaneous or unpredictable events. Love? Need to plan ahead carefully. Give thoughtful and deliberate responses. Enjoy engaging in inner reflection. Pay a lot of attention to detail. Need lots of time alone, especially after you've been engaging in social interaction. Restrained introverts seem really guarded at first but become a lot more outgoing once you get to know them. And they feel comfortable coming out of their shell. When approaching a social situation, a restrained introvert will be cautious and very deliberate. They feel more comfortable sitting back and observing the situation before participating and offering their insights. They might seem a bit aloof at first glance, but they are also great listeners and make careful, considered decisions based on their observations. While not all introverts are shy or anxious, research has shown that people who are high in behavioral inhibition as children have a higher risk of developing social anxiety later in life. When communicating with others, they sometimes prefer written asynchronous communication. Spontaneous exchanges, like phone calls, can be intimidating because it doesn't give them time to get comfortable and think about their responses. Texting and email are preferred because they have the time to think about what they want to say and organize their thoughts more carefully. Due to their reserved nature, restrained introverts are sometimes perceived as unfriendly or uninterested. This can sometimes lead to missed opportunities and pressure to try to act more extroverted. Tips for restrained introverts. Strategies that can help them overcome these challenges include setting small goals, gradually exposing themselves to new social situations, and practicing making small talk. Restrained introverts can transform the challenges they face with their slow-to-warm personality by fostering self-compassion and their curious observer. Wells suggests, for any restrained introvert interested in fostering new friendships, Wells recommends setting boundaries around social events and practicing healthy communication with others. That looks like using I statements to avoid sounding threatening or blaming and being clear and upfront with your feelings. Understanding your introversion type. So, what can you do to understand your specific introversion type, make the most of your strengths, and cope with your challenges? The first step is to consider which type of introvert best describes you. To determine which type you might be, ask yourself, do you prefer spending time with small groups of people? Then you might be a social introvert. Do you feel anxious in social situations and overthink your interactions? Then you might be an anxious introvert. Do you spend a lot of time daydreaming or analyzing information? Then you might be a thinking introvert. Do you approach social situations slowly and take time to start to feel comfortable? Then you might be a restrained introvert. Once you understand your type, you can begin building self-acceptance and achieving personal growth. Practice self-acceptance. Introversion isn't a flaw. It's all about how you interact with and experience the world, so learning to accept your personality and embrace your strengths can help you make the most of it. Set boundaries. It's important to remember that no matter your introvert type, you need time to yourself to recharge your energy. Setting limits can help protect your time and ensure you get the time alone to feel restored and refreshed. Try new things. Depending on which type of introvert you are, you may find new experiences more daunting. The key is to gradually expose yourself to new social situations and move at your own pace. Give yourself the time you need to warm up to these situations so that you can start to feel more confident and comfortable. Pay attention to your feelings and behaviors. Start noticing how you feel in different social situations. Pay attention to your energy levels, where you feel the most at ease, and which environments you thrive in. All of this can provide clues into what you need to succeed in various social settings. Remember, introversion is a natural personality trait, not a social flaw. By embracing your strengths and using these strategies, you can navigate social situations with confidence. If social anxiety is significantly impacting your daily life, consider seeking professional support from a therapist. Takeaways. Introverts share a common tendency to expend energy in social situations and restore it by spending time alone. However, introverts are not a monolith, and as such, they all vary in how they approach social situations. Social introverts prefer small groups, while anxious introverts worry more about their interactions. Thinking introverts are analytical and imaginative, while restrained introverts are cautious and deliberate. Understanding your type is important since it can provide insights into the things you need to succeed and thrive. So, which one are you? Goodbye and see you in the next videos. I'm Mr. Cognitive Quest.